Hey everybody, it's your best friend Drew Dracy, a longtime comic book industry vet, and still fanboy deep down to my bones, and a three-time author on Amazon. It's prose novels based on a fictional indie band playing in Pittsburgh at bars and clubs owned by the Russian mob. Our main character, the ingenue Lady Kilburn, she falls in love with the main mobster's son. And it gets worse and worse. Lots of curse words, lots of violence, lots of little inside rocking and rolling information that will satisfy some of the music files or fillets or however you say. Okay, enough of that. Please. I wanted to thank you that I got over 200 subscribers now. They may not seem a lot, but to me it does. That means 200 people are interested in what I have to say. I mean, maybe I'll reach 1,000 someday, but who knows? It's not crucial right now. It's just I've had people tell me that they've sought out some of the books that I mentioned because they were unaware of it, and that's part of my mission statement. So please, if you like this, please click like and subscribe and leave comments below. Anything you want to say, you like the episode, or you've thought of other stuff that I hadn't considered, or if you have to correct me, or just whatever you want to say, Okay, now I'm going back to the 70s, which was pretty freewheeling, especially at Marvel. A lot of books, I'm talking main titles like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, or even X-Men, in Avengers, etc., they had what was called album issues. Now, the album issues were books that basically were fill-ins that would retell the stories. Fantastic Four was in particularly bad shape in 1977 because there were two reprints, number 181 and 189, and then it goes into one of these album issues that's just filler. Great Kirby cover. So there's that, and Sal Buscema does quite a few of them, but I only find a few at the time. But if you think of others, please tell me. All right, well, I'm going to start with this and give you a taste of what's going on. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I have a floppy. I have floppies of almost every one of these books, and I'd love to avoid the reflection and the shine and such, but I'm too old to be sifting through boxes at the last minute. I just wanted to get this out here because it just hit me like a pile of rocks. So Marv Wolfman was the writer-editor. Sal Buscema did the layouts. It's finishes by Tony DeZuniga, and as I've said a billion times, I believe he was one of the many great artists in the Filipino invasion, as they called it, when Carmen Infantino went to the Philippines and recruited all this talent, and Marvel used them a lot for their magazines and such. And as I've said many times, he's very ill-suited for superhero comics because they need to be, glitzy and glamorous and stuff, and this just looks like a rush job. And I love Tony DeZuniga stuff. In fact, I'd probably prefer the black and white art to this color art. It's just odd because, anyway, starting from the beginning. And Sal was just a machine. He was steadily doing Hulk. There's no Hulk, to my knowledge, album issue because Sal was doing the book for years and he never missed a deadline. So it goes back to the very beginning after their origin, putting in the lumpy original thing. And it just goes into a lot of stuff. Issue 4. It hits the highlights. So first appears the Doctor Doom, and then Doctor the Submariner team up, and then goes around issue 40 where the Thing decidedly beats Doctor Doom, sends him away, joins the Frightful Four because he gets brainwashed, and here's the most famous favorite issue, This Man, This Monster, where this guy replicates him. And every time I say that, I'm so tempted to sing. In fact, I'll do it right now. This man, this monster. So, This Magic Moment, which is the actual original song. Okay, now that I'm done being Dr. Demeno, there was another time he got pitted against his friends by the Mad Thinker, and it just covers everything. And it's amazing because Sal Buscema probably did this in like a few days, because he was so quick, and he's done so many books with characters he never associated with, and he always figured out how to do it. Like, case in point, Marvel Team Up Annual #1, which had the all new, all different X-Men that were still very, very new, and he figured out how to draw them. And there's a lot of artists that just can't. It's a huge adjustment or an obstacle, but that's one thing Sal was good about. Again, it's like, this would look really great in a black and white book, but it just doesn't. It's not super heroic. And it talks about the separation of Reed and Sue around 1972 or 73, and part of it was sparked by media. There were articles talking about how the divorce rate was on the rise. So here is, he had to zap the kid to keep him from blowing shit up, and that made the band break up. And the ongoing joke that John Byrne did several times was the last statement would be the end of the Fantastic Four. I mean, that happened so many times, and he doesn't go up to recent information right now, but he probably, Wolfman probably had to get that out too. So Perez and Sinnott. Okay, we got that out of the way. Another one. I have in my spinner rack, and I somehow lost it. I don't know how you lose shit in a spinner rack. So this is the first Captain America post Jack Kirby's return in this mid-70s. Beautiful Gil Kane cover with Joe Sinnott. Probably one of the best covers Kane did, and he did a lot of good ones. And so let's get to that. Okay, Kirby's gone. And so before starting a new, not necessarily a new storyline, but a new approach post Kirby, had to have an album issue to fill that gap. And another example, this is issue 215. 216 is a reprint. So that just seemed to be a big deal to like not have somebody fill in. But one thing that was smart, that Marv Wolfman, who for a brief while was editor-in-chief, he actually had Sal Buscema and Bill Mantlo do a ton of fill-ins, and he actually scheduled it in each month. He called it Marvel Fill-In, and a perfect example is like Sal would do a lot of them, but there was one that Perez did. It was Bill Mantlo, George Perez. It was Power Man. Luke Cage Power Man number 28 or so, and it was a great fill-in. So here we go. And George Tuska is doing this. I love George Tuska, but I have to say, it looks like a rush job. It really does. And probably so, rightfully so. Like, he's talking about being back and all that. It's almost like saying, I'm back from being with Kirby, and I could actually get reintegrated to the Marvel Universe proper. So it goes back to the origin for the umpteenth time. Die Schweihund. And we see this montage, lots of montages. Bucky finds Steve in a state of undress, and he goes, "Hey, pal, I want to be your partner." So, as absurd as that is, they did a decent retro about it in Fabian Nicieza and Maguire did a 4-issue Captain America, The Adventures of Captain America, where they kind of updated, made Bucky more savvy, more like a street kid who was older than his years. Okay, I'm getting off the path here. Excuse me. Okay, that's when Bucky gets all, blown up and such. And this goes back to recent stories that Roy Thomas wrote, that after supposedly Cap died, he had a couple of guys fill in, the Spirit of 76, and then the Patriot, and then they talk about the 1950s Cap, who was a commie chaser and, beat up, he was just intolerant of pretty much everything. and then he faced him, the real Cap, later. So there's Avengers 4. There's some real sweet pages, but there's also, like, that couldn't have taken long to do, but that's all right, you know. I mean, Cap versus the Skull, that works for me. And there's the 50s Cap getting his ass kicked. He looks in the mirror. And again, they don't go right up to recent time. And here's a trope that always makes me crack up. It is pretty much in the 70s, a 70s thing. It's like he goes, he talks about his early years he doesn't quite remember. And he goes, but so help me, I'm going to find out. Who is Steve Rogers? You see that a lot in the 70s books where like Iron Man or somebody is weakened, but they have to, you know, save the city or whatever, and they'll think to themselves, he goes, I've got to stop him. Or die trying! Can you imagine just somebody yelling, or die trying, and it's like, huh? Maybe that was a way to disorient the victim, the foe, because you see a lot of that. It's so kooky. I've gone back to this before in my last episode. So here's an album issue right after, and this actually made a lot of sense because Ross Andrew. No, I'm wrong. He continued on further. But, so we have an album issue. Gil Kane. I don't know who's doing the inks quite. Hard to tell. Maybe Giacoya. So he thinks about Uncle Ben died. You know, he's like, I haven't thought about that in half an issue. I better get back to that. And this looks so much better in newsprint because a lot of flat colors, and on the shiny paper, it looks very tinny, very... like you need a little bit of depth. So yeah, Spider-Man was born. So he finds, you know, they usually start with the origin, spend more pages on that than anything else, because everything else is kind of, you know, this is what happened since. Trying to join the FF, didn't happen. Fought Scorpion, the Spider Slayer, Power Man, the Fly, and another Spider Slayer. How J. Jonah Jameson never, ever, ever went to prison for this. If you have a remote robot and you're controlling it, why put your face on it? It's incriminating as hell. You know, just have a tiny little screen that, you know, that'll let him see what's going on. But that just always cracked me up. So, there's Dr. Doom, blah, 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 blah. Lots of stuff. Gwen Stacy, and then Captain Stacy dies, and then Pete's love, Captain Stacy's daughter, Gwen, passes on. The Enforcers, Bandwolf, Morbius. This is really cool. I had the pleasure of inking a jam piece that was very similar to this. And it had like 20 different pencilers, and I got to ink the whole shebang, and that was so fun. And then the Punisher, hi Tiger, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. But I mean, Sal could be counted on doing stuff. I mean, he was also, I think, I can't remember. He did at least 2 books a week, a month. Well, he leaves behind his microscope, and this guy finds it. His bum takes it up. It's like, you crumb bum, as Ben Grimm used to love to say. Now we got another one. Oh, excuse me. Rare instance of the main creative team actually doing their own album issue. What happened is the Dark Phoenix Saga, which was probably still one of the greatest comic stories ever in the last 40, 50 years, or it's up there, okay? Well, they just killed her off, and I remember reading this issue, going... I went to see my Aunt Flo and Uncle Chuck in Cleveland, and I had a couple comics to keep me occupied. And I'm reading them in the back seat, and I'm reading this, and it blows me away. But it's like, I felt like I was in just this little box, because there's no way I could have expressed how great or impressive this was to me and how emotional it was, because, you know, they'd laugh their ass off. I mean, comic geek fandom was not for grown-ups. It was for kids, and then geeks like me who didn't outgrow comics. So it was just weird knowing this little secret of this fantastic story, but I had no one to tell. And I probably could have, but, it would have been silly. It just what I mean. The gravity of the situation is what hit me. It would be hard to express to anybody who isn't a comics reader how important it is. I'll tell my wife about stuff like this, and she just kind of, okay, that's kind of neat. She's not a comics reader. She's just, her passion is finding rocks, like rare rocks and stuff like that. And a beautiful cover. I love that hot pink. I love that. Reprinting several, covers from the past. This was completely swiped by Rob Liefeld to issue New Mutants, and there was a lot of that going on with Liefeld, but what are you gonna do? So Jean Grey, they even gave her an age. She was 30. This has been copied a lot too, and in fact Byrne copied it in Alpha Flight after Guardian died. So they go through the early days, where they're tussling, and then it's a girl. And The Stranger, probably the only appearance I like him in. He was just a shitty character, and I'll go to my grave saying that. Years later, they justified his existence, and I'm like, no, too little, too late. I love these corny characters. They're just so great. Lucifer, the Mimic, Despero, I think. Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's this, it's hard to explain, this Aztec character, Locust, Banshee before he became a good guy. Super Adaptoid. I just love Super Adaptoid. He has the powers of Cap, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and he could shoot like Hawkeye. Although he never used his super speed. So go figure. Oh, and Cap was he was visiting, so he picked up some of that. So that's so great. The new costumes. When the reprints came out, I had just purchased this issue from 1974 that was issue. X-Men was a reprint title of its own earlier issues for years. And I remember when he got the new costumes, I thought it was pretty cool. Although Angel didn't have that mask. He had his face open, and I had a friend tell me, why would you, if you're trying to be a mutant and hiding, why would you not wear a mask? So dramatic. I love that lighting. That wasn't in the original, but it was still cool. And that was done by George Tuska, The Death of Professor X, and it was really well executed. So we're going through a lot of things. Living Monolith. And, I sort of knew a lot of this stuff just because I read some of the books, but there were other gaps I didn't know about. The Krakoa. And then recent... Whoa. I'm jumping ahead. Alpha Flight, Sasquatch. Here goes Lalandra, Imperial Guard, Weapon of Vindicator, who became Guardian, Arcade, Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix and Proteus, and what's great about this whole situation is they bring her in. I mean, it's pure genius. They bring in a new kid to kind of give it, I hate to say a new hope, but because that's Star Wars talk. Gee, I wonder what the ITC, what that whole word spells out, but I loved it. And, so right away, well, that's the annual. I'll get to that. I may not get to that, but, and then right away, you, as the reader, you get an inside view. I love this kind of stuff because you're seeing this with fresh eyes. She's very young and innocent. She's only 13, and she got her powers got discovered as they knocked the camera around. Okay, now those are the only album issues I could think of. Now there's been some titles that have redrawn an origin, like Barry Windsor Smith when he was just Barry Smith. He did an Iron Man one, issue 57, but it was a straight retelling of the origin. So this gets honorable mention. Not this issue, but one that precedes it by almost a year. Finally, the great anniversary issue, sesquicentennial sesquicentennial celebration, and that's what I learned that meant 150. So great cover. George Perez, inked by I'm gonna see who's inking it. It might be I can't see. Hold on. Oh, it's actually inked by John Tartaglione, Duffy Volan, and Dick Ayers. Now, Dick Ayers, he does the flashback. Well, back then, redoing new membership lineups was a big deal. And it was like press conference and all this stuff, which is kind of silly and current. You got actually Ecstatics and Excellent, the Peter Milligan and Mike Allred and Laura Allred book, that did a lot of that kind of stuff with the media. So this whole issue is basically devoted to that. However, there is a retelling of the early issues through a news report, which is really clever. The only other comic that took new old membership seriously was Legion of Superheroes. I mean, they every year in real time. Okay, and there's Perez, there's Wonder Man, there's Hulk saying, "Get the F out of here." Let's see, I'll do a little closer. There we go. We'll focus there, and then it jumps right to a reprint halfway through this book. Excuse me, I gotta get a swig of water. Okay, just stay where you are. Okay. My poor penguins sucked this year. So what are you going to do? Please excuse me. Okay. This is the Kirby layout and Dick Ayers finishes, which is why it looks a little different on some of the faces and such. And this was back when the original 5 Avengers quit. Hawkeye takes over, as well as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and Cap is left to teach these youngins how to. That's so great. That's such a great Captain America thing to do. So he ends up being the tutor, and they're like, "Will he be stronger or weaker?" Holy Kirby floating has, which is wonderful. Okay, and this is honorable mention. It is sort of an album issue, but the gravity of how important the new lineup will be is. I loved it, but it's just funny. It's just funny. And this was an album issue that I really loved because it's high quality. It was George Perez and John Tartag, not Cartag, but John Tartaglione. A very long Italian name. I guess they just wanted to make it abridged. I'm not going to explain a lot of this stuff. So they're talking. Is Hawkeye in or out? La la la. A lot of Steve Englehart wrapped up with issue 150, and Jerry Conway very briefly became editor-in-chief and kind of took a lot of the titles, which he claims some were very late. And although lateness was a very common thing in this era. So seeing all the images of Goliath and that absurd costume. Sorry, Mr. Windsor Smith. They're talking about potential members that just didn't quite make it. And then you have the champions. And that's such a great... I love when Perez would do that kind of stuff. When I would draw my own comics, I would throw that in there once in a while. And then meanwhile, you have the champions, who consist of 2 ex-Avengers, Ghost Rider and Watch It TV. Apparently, it's a big deal. So, or else, back then, there were only 3 TV stations. There was NBC, CBS, ABC, and then the UHF channel, which showed old movies and reruns of shows. Just probably the best stuff on there. Moondragon, she says all her snobby shit. And it goes back to Mantis. So it's really a treat. I mean, George makes it a treat. Hellcat is ready to accept. You're not ready. You're not experienced enough. And she basically says, "I will take you to Titan and learn all this stuff." And, she was kind of new at the time. But that really hadn't stopped a lot of characters later. Avengers Assemble. Here we go. This coloring here, fantastic. you can see the Avengers clear, and you know they're not all purple people eaters. You know they're not the Purple Man, Killraven, or whatever his name is, Kilgrave. But it's just sensational. It's such a smart move. And unfortunately, you see a lot of people trying to make everybody stand out, and then it becomes a stew of color, you know, like soupy creek. And he comes back. But Wonder Man soon to have his own TV show, and just like with Hellcat and with Kitty Pryde, I really enjoyed this character because it was a new, quote unquote, new character. He died after one issue, and I could hang around with the Avengers through a newbie's eyes. And he was a zombie for a little while. Excuse me. I can't believe my throat is so ticklish. Probably because I did yesterday's video. So that's about it. And so this gets honorable mention. And I hope you've enjoyed this. It was just a weird thing. The 70s were just weird. You basically had the whole place run by fanboys and with very little discipline. And because Stan Lee was on, he was on the West Coast trying to get Marvel shows made. And back then, special effects could not do anything worthwhile with Marvel characters, with the exception of maybe the Incredible Hulk TV show. And so that's it. That's it. All those ants. All right, everybody. You have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this. And let me know if you have any other ideas for future episodes. Talk to you later.